Welcome back to My Hero Academia Overanalyzed. Today's episode is Season 1, Episode 6, Rage You Damn Nerd.
A throw like that requires a lot of force.
In the recap, rather than getting Izuku's internal dialogue after the ball throw, we instead get Aizawa's perspective. An interesting switch up there.
Tell me how you did that or you're dead!
Might be dipping a little too close to those Deku was depressed and bullied super bad in Aldria headcanons that people have, but here Izuku genuinely looks surprised that Aizawa stepped in to stop Bakugo. Even in the context of just the show, we do see him being assaulted in front of a teacher, so I don't think it's too far of a reach to think Izuku's genuinely shocked that someone, especially a teacher, stepped in to stop Bakugo. This also is kind of the first time Bakugo is humbled by UA. While I don't really like the over-the-top nature of his bullying in the first episode, this does provide a big contrast to it. This is not a place where Bakugo is going to thrive through violence.
Class 1A's homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. He can erase the quirk of anyone he looks at, but the effect ends when he
This breaks the normal conventions of how people are introduced in the show. Normally it names the person, then names their quirk, and describes what it does. This, for some reason, I believe is the only time the quirk itself isn't named during a present mic intro.
Your quirk is amazing, Kacchan!
In the flashback here, they're clearly going into the forest to go bug hunting, as seen by this net and Izuku carrying what I think are those plastic bug carriers. Not only does this align with Bakugo's internal dialogue comparing Izuku to a bug he can crush, it also gives a little insight at the same visually. Izuku is following Bakugo, the clear leader, and is playing a purely supporting role by carrying the bug cages. They only have one net here, and while it's possible that Bakugo shared, I think it's safe to assume that didn't happen, considering, you know, his superiority complex. Anyways, looking too much into that aside, I think the silent rage this scene shows is really good. Izuku using a quirk here essentially completely shattered all perceptions of Izuku Bakugo had.
Alright, time to give you your results.
Oyama looking into the camera again. This becomes pretty frequent in Season 1 especially, but this is such a quick one I could see people missing it. Also, the person looking over Izuku here is Oshako. We know this because of the armbands. I think it's a nice detail that she stuck with him after he broke his finger. She was the first one to ask if he was okay earlier also. Okay, let's look over this list. I'm gonna use the manga here just for visual clarity. So, I have a few notes. First of all, I said last episode I think Bakugo would be the best at these tests overall because of his quirk being best suited to them. I have changed my opinion on this, mostly because I made this spreadsheet categorizing how each student's quirk would help in each test. Keep in mind this is mostly headcanon and deliberately based off of their current skill level. The basic gist of this chart is that if their quirk is helpful in a test, it's green, which is worth 2 points. If it's a bit helpful, then it's yellow and is 1 point. And if the quirk gives no benefit in a test, then it's red and worth 0 points. Originally, I was surprised at Bakugo ranking 3rd officially, but in my list, he actually ranks lower at 4th. However, a big difference is the fact that the two ahead of him in the original are actually below him in my list. The only person I agree with exactly is Shoji at 6th place. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm not going to touch on all of them and my reasons, obviously. If you really want, then ask me in the comments. That would take way too long to do here, so I'll just go over my biggest disagreements. The biggest thing is that I genuinely do not believe Izuku would have gotten last place. Kirishima, Sero, Kaminari, and Toru all have quirks that just straight up either do not do anything significant for them in these tests, or actively completely useless. What the hell can electricity or hardening do for anything here? Genuinely, how did Kirishima get 8th place in the original? It doesn't make any sense to me. Izuku got at least one great score, but all the 4 below him I think could get an okay score on maybe one of the tests. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Momo is down 7 spots. This is because while her quirk is extremely versatile, I don't think it would be that helpful on a lot of the physical stuff like the distance running, the standing long jump, etc. She'd do well at, I think, stuff like the grip strength because she could create something for it, but in the series we don't really see her make anything that really affects her mobility in any way. Shoto is also really down, and I was generous in assuming he can ride on his ice this early, which I'm very unsure of. But his power is really not suited here. He learns to go fast way later on with his fire, but here he isn't using fire, so he only has his ice available, which really doesn't lend that exceptionally to everything. He still has a decent amount of points, but not 2nd place worthy. Speaking of 2nd place, Ashido is actually super underrated in the original list. We see her having the ability to skate on her acid this early, which opens up a huge amount of options for her mobility-wise. Plus, because of her breakdancing hobby, she's one of the few I actually believe has an advantage on the sit-ups and toe touches. is. Granted, that isn't strictly quirk related, but I feel like it's worth accounting for. Sue is also super low for how versatile her quirk is, and did you know frogs have great grip strength? It's true. Anyways, to cap the segment off, I think Tokoyami is the one who could take the most advantage of his quirk in these tests. We see him use Dark Shadow for mobility as early as the sports festival, and stuff like the sit-ups can be helped with Dark Shadow. It's super versatile, and I think he's worthy of the #1 spot. I could go much more in depth with this, so again, feel free to argue with me about it. If enough people are interested, maybe I'll even make a dedicated video about it.
And I was lying. No one's going home.
Really beneficial change for the manga here. Like, I'm baffled the manga is like this, but Aizawa in the manga reveals that no one is being suspended before he shows the list. So, Izuku doesn't have this moment of defeat there. It's more of a, oh boy, I'm starting at the bottom, rather than a, oh shit, I'm gonna get expelled. Really good call for the anime to switch the order of these things. Ida is so shocked he broke his glasses. Also, Toru lets out a sigh of relief in the background here.
That's it. We're done for the day.
Aoyama hitting the papyrus, or the germa, depending on your region.
It's cruel to let a kid keep dreaming of something that will never come true.
This sentiment Aizawa expresses here is actually one that All Might himself expressed back in episode 2 to Midoriya. They actually both have quite similar backgrounds that both draw this conclusion. Hell, I'd say if All Might didn't know Izuku had one, for all he'd share a fairly similar outlook to Aizawa here.
But clearly, we are gonna have us a problem.
I wonder if there was like a planned beef between All Might and Aizawa that never came to fruition. Or if All Might just assumed wrong here, because they don't really have a problem between them going forward. Easy to assume that he was going to have a problem though if Izuku was almost on the chopping block on day 1.
But you know what? I like Deku. It could make a great hero name. Plus, I think it sounds kinda cute.
I really like this moment of characterization, but it's especially strong in the manga and the sub, with Ochako rather than calling it cute. She says it feels like it means do your best. This has a payoff a lot later in the manga, and I genuinely do not know how the dub is going to handle that. But screw English, the original Japanese meaning is even better than both of these. And take this with a grain of salt, I did do my best to fact check everything, but I cannot speak Japanese. Deku in Japanese literally means wooden doll, but in terms of how it's used as a derivative, it's used to mean something useless. Ochako in the original Japanese draws a parallel to how Deku sounds like the word Deruku, a Japanese word that means you can do it. This is why Ochako in the manga and the English sub kind of randomly says it screams you can do it, which works just fine, but it loses some of the context from the original. Essentially, Ochako is twisting an insult into a compliment. Or do they? It's costume ranking time! Going in seat order. First up, Aoyama. I actually quite like this costume. It's a bit over the top, but it kind of fits with, you know, Aoyama. I like that his support belt is made to match with the costume, or I guess the costume is made to match the support belt. Only real downside is that the glasses aren't the best. Either switch up the design or colors and it would be pretty damn good. B. Next is Mina, and the 80s carpet aesthetic doesn't really work very well for her. I could definitely see the intent here, kind of mimicking a melty acid texture, but it ends up being kind of messy and the colors just don't complement her that well. The fur and boots are fine, but I could really do with a different bodysuit. Horikoshi has actually used a slightly different color palette for her a couple of times and it does wonders. Replacing the purple with the same yellow as her eyes and making the cyan a bit more vibrant really helps. Here's a rough mock-up of what it would look like on her final outfit. Still wouldn't be my absolute favorite this way, but it would still be a step up. F as is. Asui's is a really good one. I love that the goggles on her head look like frog eyes. The palette in general is just easy on the eyes, and I like the oversized gloves. The entire suit is also taking some cues from wetsuits that are used for diving, which is just perfect. Just overall a really strong design, not really much else to say. So, A. Ida's costume is just cool as hell. I love the armor aesthetic and the general look of the costume as a whole. It's super unique among the class and it really stands out even outside of it. Also the fact that it's based on his brother's costume is really cool. I kind of wish the helmet was used more actually. But anyways, damn good costume. S. Ochako is next and we continue the string of good costumes. While I do prefer a costume in the later seasons, as it just kind of streamlines this one, this is still really good. I like the helmet, the color palette is great. It's just a good costume. The only thing I can nitpick is that I don't really like the look of her pelvis area. The line coming up it and the belt just kind of clash a little bit with the rest of the suit. But overall, A. Ojiro's costume is probably like the blandest. It's fine, inoffensive, doesn't do much to stand out. just kind of there. He's not like a bad character or anything, he's fine, but really he's like, oh man, Ojiro's my favorite character. Like, what does he even do throughout the series? I mean, at least his quirk is shown off before season 2, unlike Sato, but that's because it's a fucking tail. Oh, wait, I was supposed to be talking about the costume. I like the fur on his collar, I guess. D. Kaminari's hero costume is pretty okay. I think it gets a little better later, but as is, it's alright. It's not horrible, but for an electric hero, I'd say it could have pulled from that more. There's already a few more casual costumes in 1A alone, so having him stand out a bit more would have been nice. I'd say this is a solid C for now. Kiroshima's hero costume is really great. The colors and cloth around his waist, the weird gear things, it's all really recognizable. He definitely could be showing less skin, and I'd say that's my main critique, but his quirk is kind of hard to work around in that regard. But regardless, I'd say a high B. I don't like Koda's costume. I don't really know what they were going for. I mean, it's a mouth, and he can command animals, so it's something, but I'm just not a fan. It's just weird, and the color palette is so unappealing. I don't have much else to say. It's just an odd design. F. Sato's costume is okay, but boring. It's very basic, but like, gets the job done. It's good in motion, and it looks better when it gets that All Might shading when he's quirked up, but outside of that, which is most of the time, it's kind of forgettable. I like the pouches for carrying sugar at least, and the color palette doesn't make me want to tear my eyes out, so that's good. Otherwise, it's a pretty generic hero costume. C. Shoji's hero costume is a solid good. Nothing outstanding, and the rings on his body are a bit weird, but I like how his mask is just part of his hero suit. Overall, it does a good job of kind of emphasizing the arms by being a bit darker than them. It's not meant to be that attention grabbing, and the palette used for achieving that is pretty nice. Just a good one overall. B. Jiro's hero costume is probably not objectively a good one, but I like it anyway. I love the coat used, and the boots are a really cool support item. I'm also a sucker for fingerless gloves. I just think the costume as a whole really fits her character. I think the pink undershirt maybe would look better red to match her eye, whatever these things are, but overall I just think it's neat. A. Okay, I actually fucking love Sarah's hero costume. It's a tape dispenser that's so good. I also really think the palette works here, like genuinely for a side character. This is such a good design. Kind of out of nowhere, but I'm gonna have to give this an S. Tokoyami has a serviceable hero costume. I think on its own it's a little bland, just a cloak and a dark body full suit under, but I think it's kind of akin to Shoji's costume where it's simple so it doesn't distract from Dark Shadow. It's a little more extreme here though. There's really no design here, but it works well enough for what it's trying to do. See? Okay, for Shoto's hero costume, I can see what they were going for. His fire side being covered by his eyes to be a visual indicator that he doesn't use his fire side, but also it's just so ugly, man, especially the ice mask. I think it just ends up being silly. The pure white underneath is interesting. I think it works better for him than the blue they use later, but it does not save this one at all. D. Toru's costume. I mean, it works. I don't know what I'd change. I mean, it's a costume for someone who is invisible, and yeah, it works well for that. Don't have much to say. It's fine. See? Bakugo's hero costume is so good. I love how insanely over the top it is. It fits him so well. The giant grenades and the hair things, God, I know that costume is obviously kind of impractical, but I love it. He is a grenade. Not to mention the color palette is actually really good. The oranges and dark greens work really well with the black. But yeah, I like this costume a lot. I'm gonna put it in S. Look at this dork. I know his mom got him the costume, but oh my god, the design is just not it. The ears and the mask look more so silly than anything, and the bright green I feel like clashes with his dark hair more than anything. I'm really glad this is what he stuck with. Anyways, yeah, sorry Izuku, but F. This costume sucks. Honestly, mainly because of the diaper looking thing. I know it's meant to be a great ball, but holy shit, it does not get that across well. Nor does it look good. I think the cape and the mask are alright, and I like how it does that anime thing of the hair blending in with the clothes sometimes, but otherwise I just hate this bad, gross F. Yeah, this isn't great. I understand the reason for her needing skin showing because of her quirk, but as so many have pointed out before, there are so many other ways to do this more tastefully. Even just a zipper would be better than this. I actually vastly prefer her winter design just because it at least has a cloak to cover her up a bit more. I like the color palette of her costume and the detail of her carrying a notebook for the compounds of things, but outside of that, yeah, not great. D. And that concludes the costume ranking. Maybe someday we'll do a part 2 when they all get their newer versions. Back to the episode now.
which included physical measurements and any desired costume designs.
Doesn't show up in the anime, but damn, Mineta kinda got fucked over with his design. Who did him that dirty? I mean, it's deserved, but like, wow.
I'm sorry, Izuku. And I promise I'll support you with everything I've got from now on.
I really like how Inko is portrayed in general. It would have been really easy to turn her into a one-dimensional character, or honestly not focus on her at all, as so many anime do. But she really feels like a realistic parent with some nuance. She's supportive of Izuku, but is still reasonably worried about him. She doesn't always do or say the right thing, but it's not out of malice. And she can recognize when she slips up, but she's also willing to stick to her convictions when she feels it matters most. I just really like Inko.
It's a gift from my mom. So of course it's what I'm gonna wear.
As much as I don't like the suit, I do think it's incredibly endearing that he wears the suit that his mom got him. Even when he moves on from this costume, he still incorporates the design elements from it as it evolves.
I love this school.
You're so obvious!
Honestly, I think it's subtle enough to not be obvious. In fact, the first time I watched, I doubt I placed the similarities together before All Might did. Izuku's first suit gives more bunny than All Might, even if that wasn't the intention.
The villains have hidden a nuclear...
Shout out once again to the show for getting actual pixel artists. It makes a huge difference.
Wow, what are the chances? We're a team!
About a 0.5% chance, or 1 in 190 picks, assuming it's entirely random, which it is. And that is about a 2% chance on top of that, meaning this specific outcome has a 0.0001% chance of happening, or a 1 in 10,000. And that's not even taking into account the formation of Bakugo Nita's team. Tough luck, Izuku. Izuku is instinctively scared of Bakugo here. Who expects this? Then when Izuku finds the will to look back, it pisses Bakugo off. This is another more subtle show of Bakugo's superiority and inferiority complexes. Superiority by not even reacting when Izuku is scared of him, and inferiority when he gets immediately angry when Izuku stands up to him, even with just a gesture as small as matching his gaze. This may even be fear. I keep talking about inferiority and superiority complexes together because despite seeming like they would contradict one another, they actually are very closely linked, a superiority complex often being the result of an inferiority complex, essentially boosting your ego to compensate. So when that compensation, i.e. putting others below you and putting your self-worth on them failing, begins to not work out, the superiority complex facade starts to crumble and the inferiority complex begins to become more obvious. So far we've only seen some peaks at the inferiority aspect of it, but during this upcoming fight, and especially the aftermath of it, the other side of that coin begins to really show.
If things go too far, I'll step in.
Sure.
Do you really think Deku has a quirk?
Bakugo essentially being in denial of Izuku having a quirk is again a really big indication of how much his superiority complex hinges on Izuku being a, as he describes, a bug he can crush, or just a pebble in his path.
He can be a real pain, sure, but his strength and confidence and his ambition, not to mention his quirk.
It is really interesting how Izuku truly sees the best in everyone. While this could and probably is also a factor of his low as hell self-esteem, he's also willing to objectively look at someone who has personally wronged him for a decade and pick out the good in that person, or at least the things he thinks is admirable. This is what really sets him apart from others. This is the way he can see through people into their cores. He's willing to not let bias cloud his judgment of others, even when he has every right to. Really good characterization here.
I want to hurt you so bad they'll have to stop the fight. Just look!
This line always really confused me because it really sounds like he says wanna here instead of won't, which makes the just close not make any sense. It's probably a me thing, but I wanted to point it out anyway.
He's not that good.
This really goes back to a point I made in episode 1, where Izuku's analysis and smarts are what allows him to keep up with his classmates, even while his quirk is worse than theirs. It also ends up being a main factor in why he's eventually able to pull so far ahead of them as well. This is a great start to the payoff for the establishment of his analytical side that they set up in the first episode.
From now on, Deku is the name of a hero.
I don't have too much to say here that I didn't already say about his name earlier, but I think the ability to take something negative and spin it to mean something positive is once again a really good character beat. And it's also probably what really sets Bakugo off here.
You're shaking in your boots. You're so scared. You want to fight me anyway. That's why I hate you.
Yeah, that about sums it up. I feel like I've exhausted all I can say right now about a superiority complex, but yes, Izuku continues to be a threat towards it, and Bakugo's not handling it well. The cracks are really beginning to show here, especially with that read Izuku had on Bakugo with the right hook. He's starting to learn that he isn't as untouchable as he had hoped.
That's the Ida way, and I won't tarnish my family's heroic name.
I don't normally have anything to say about these outros, but this drops the fact that Ida comes from a hero family. Interesting, because we don't normally learn that until episode 9. Also, anyone else miss the fact that they brought other characters in to do these in the early seasons? They never do that anymore. It's just Izuku. Sad. And that's all for the episode. My god, I had significantly more to say about it than I thought I would. Granted, a lot of it was costume ranking, but wow. A lot of stuff setting up the groundwork for Bakugo's character here. It was really fun to dig into that. But I think that's all for this episode. Next time is Deku versus Kacchan, a fated battle between rivals. Let's ignore all safety measures. See you then.